Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join us here today. Over the course of the next 30 minutes, we'll be talking through predictive intelligence, the secret weapon in pharma BD assessment. A little housekeeping item for those that are joining us. There's a Q&A function at the bottom right hand of your screen. So throughout the webinar, if there are any questions that you'd like for myself and the other panelists to address, please do submit and we'll do our best to address as many as we can live. And for others, we'll follow up shortly afterwards. So within the context of BD, as we all know, BD assessments are really one of the most complex and high-stake exercises in life sciences. It's a blend of science, strategy, and timing. And to really put financial stakes into context, year to date, life sciences mergers and acquisition spend has reached about $70 billion and continues to grow. Now, while data is a key foundation, it really is one side of the story. And on that same coin, and then on the other side, being able to generate that data into actionable insights in an efficient manner, that is where true value is realized. Now, layer on the flexibility to adjust in real time, truly decisive action is really enabled. As mentioned earlier, the financial stakes continue to be high, with billions of dollars on the line and immense pressure to get every decision right. The ability to act decisively and on time has never been more critical. With that, I'd like to introduce two other panelists that will be joining us here today. Vikas Hirmath, who's the VP of Product at Verix, and Jacob Pajewski, who's the VP of US Commercial Strategy, BD, and External Collaboration at GSK. So to really kick us off, I'd like to welcome Jacob to our virtual table here to get really your perspective and thoughts on BD, where the industry has been going, and where do we need to go as an industry forward. So Jacob, thank you so much again for taking the time to join us here today.
Thank you very much, Ed, for having me. And hello, everyone. I will add that working at a large pharmaceutical company, I bring perspective of a strategic investor that many times looks in parallel at multiple different therapeutic areas. And sometimes these are almost like competing interests that need to be accommodated. Also, because of our setup, me and my team, we tend to focus more on later stage assets, which then means that the commercial considerations around the forecast and the future investment in launch and commercializations are looked at, with a higher level of detail.
Jacob, really excited to have you here and be able to hear from you a lot of your experience and perspective. And let's get started right there. So definitely it sounds like you've led and reviewed a number of BD assessments. Why do you think they're so challenging to get right?
There are many factors, and we always say it's a blend of art and science. The art is the human judgment, human experience, sometimes instinct factor, but there is also a healthy dose of science that can be infused into that, and that means being able to integrating a vast amounts of information in a very quick time across the scientific lens, the, as mentioned, commercial lens and financial perspective, and make judgment calls under time pressure and often not always with complete information.
No, fair enough. Definitely difficult. So then with that being said, where do you see a lot of teams getting stuck more often than not? Is it, the framework? Is it trying to figure out where the data needs to come from? Or is it simply getting alignment across everybody?
It's frankly the mix of those three, I would say. Of course, depending on situation, and often we say each case is unique and specific, but if you've done enough of them, you start seeing the pattern. So there is definitely room for a framework and somewhat systematic approach across those evaluation. To have that framework really working and have the right information in the right place, if you wish, there is need to break down the silos of data that, there's clinical data about the assets, their efficacy, there's market data about, if you wish, the performance of analogous treatment that we use for forecast assessments. There's obviously need to very meticulously revise the competitive landscape and imagine how it would look in the future when this drug is in the market. and other sources that are less structured, like epidemiological data, for instance, right? So they have different formats. Some of them are very up to date to the minute. There are competitive catalysts coming on us, every day. And some of things are very static, like epidata, rarely moves from publication to publication, if you wish. So as a result, a lot of the times we find ourselves sifting through different reports and trying to bring things together, which makes it not that easy to scale. But if you are able to bring some discipline to your thinking and to your data sources and structure things better, that's where you can actually tackle the earlier problem, which I've mentioned, when sometimes you need to deal with several problems at the same time, right, by the same team.
Right. Well, definitely you've already touched upon a bunch of the factors, but working with data, being data driven, I'm sure there's some limitations when relying on data for BD assessments. So other than the ones you've maybe mentioned, are there any others that you would highlight? And then maybe the more important question is, how do you define what the right kind of data is for effective decision making, especially in business development?
Yes, I think definitely it's important that have data that is both broad as well as deep, and have some flexibility there, right? So depending on what's available to you, you can rely on higher level reports and try to consolidate those. But in ideal situation, you actually want to look a little bit deeper, and for a really important evaluation, that's definitely warranted, to go on a very detailed level and really try to quantify how many, let's say, patients really are there, let's say in the United States, how many of those are truly eligible for that treatment, to really have a robust assessment. And that many times turns out to be different than what you might see on a face value if you just look at reports or publications, because there are different assumptions being made. And actually being able to dig deeper in the actual data and have it at your disposal in a fast and flexible way, that can give significant improvement to the quality of decision making, as well as competitive advantage, frankly, because you can get to those insights faster. So there have been situations where we've been perhaps looking at something and had a one perspective on like what the market potential would be, and then you actually look into details and realize, yes, but this patient population is so broadly distributed across the country that actually will be a tremendous commercial effort to get to all those patients with that treatment, and the realistic take on the market potential suddenly shrinks, for instance, right? Which is not something you would read out of the high-level epidemiology report.
Right. Well, now actually, that was going to be one of my next questions, because I am curious, since you've had such a wealth of experience, where is it often, or maybe not so often, where you're running into scenarios where the real world data actually will either raise or lower the valuation versus the scientific belief, to kind of the acute example you just described?
Yeah, that's exactly it. And there are many other examples where we find, for instance, if you're able to track a little bit more also longitudinal data of patient history, you find kind of where these roadblocks are, and you find there are pools of patients that seem to be eligible for the treatment, but actually they are kind of cycled through different types of treatment, and that means there's a huge inertia in the market, which will again require higher investment if you wish to change and break to introduce an innovative treatment. So these are all the facts that we look in particular carefully for those later stage assets where the commercialization is near. We're talking about something that we might be launching in 2 or 3 years from now. So we actually will need to start preparing for a commercial launch the moment the acquisition is complete. And that's where you really need to understand well what the scope of the investment is, what the need in investment is, to balance also your net present value of the opportunity and what you're willing to pay for it.
Makes sense. I know we've spent a lot of time on data, because that is definitely one critical aspect of a BD evaluation, but then there's the component of really turning it into insights. So when we think about BD assessments and, really trying to be efficient without sacrificing depth or precision, what do you see as the biggest levers? And more importantly, with the advancements of technology and analytics, how does automation fit into that?
Yes, I'm very excited about automation because, traditional way is to just rely on instinct and experience to kind of zero in on what the critical three issues would be for a particular asset, be it around market potential or manufacturing or IP or whatever it is. But then if you have ability to really diligently and in a consistent way that is uniform across evaluation, run through certain aspects of your assumptions, then that frees up actually time to also go deeper on those other parts that maybe are less structured. And that's really, really important because that's the best way to leverage human expertise, right? Focus it on where it really matters versus let the analytical work happen in a possibly automated way. And there are many ways to that we've seen it's possible to actually convert the oftentimes manual forecasting process in something that is more streamlined and automated and consistent across evaluations.
Got it. You mentioned a lot of pain points. Is there one that really sticks out that's been a challenge for it? And now with the implementation, are there other things that has really helped to accelerate the BD assessment when it comes to automating the process, using advanced analytics, etc.?
Yes. So we talked a little bit about the pain points, and they are kind of circle around, the framework, the structure of the information that you have, but also then aligning stakeholder. I will add that that's something that is really the stakeholder alignment is really critical, especially from a large strategics perspective, because our evaluation teams tend to be much larger than what our friends at private equity or venture funds are used to, and therefore having something to rely on in terms of a consistent data-driven basis to compare opportunities as well is really, really helpful to also speed up and streamline that expert alignment.
Got it. Well, Jacob, I know we've taken up quite a bit of your time already. So firstly, thank you so much for sharing your perspective on it. And I wanted to use this as a jumping off point to really share with the audience here what Veeva, Compass, and Verix have come together to provide to the industry, a solution that really leverages a foundational data that more or less meets what you've described, but then also Verix bringing the Tavana platform to automate it. So with that, maybe we can segue into some of the other aspects of the webinar here. And I wanted to start off with, again, the foundational piece being data itself. So when we talk about data, Veeva Compass Patient is really the right data set when it comes to a lot of the use cases and the nuances that Jacob described within a BD assessment. So when I think about Veeva Compass Patient, it really boils down to being more complete, unlimited access, and daily data. Compass Patient is our anonymous patient longitudinal data that includes dispense, prescriptions, and procedures, and diagnoses for today's complex therapies. When we talk about the completeness of the data, as Jacob mentioned, what Veeva Compass Patient brings to the table is not only breadth and depth of what's occurring in the marketplace, so having visibility into the clinical behaviors, how patients and HCPs and HCOs are interacting with one another, and being able to see that competitive dynamic. Unlimited access and industry first, really giving users the freedom to explore, learn, adapt their commercial strategies, and being able to have access to the entirety of the data network to support any use cases, and specifically within business development, being able to explore and really hone in on what the true valuation of that opportunity is. And then lastly, daily data to your far right. So another industry first, where the data network is updated daily. So giving you the most timely view of the market as to what's been occurring, especially when any particular activities occur, taking place, seeing the impact of it, what the pull through is. Now, as we move to the next slide and I talk about the completeness of Compass Patient, it really is around the characteristic of the data network. So it's a combination of open and closed sources. And what this provides is on the open side, giving you that broad reach, being able to understand what activities are taking place, being able to see subsegments of the market, as well as longitudinal tracking and a representative sample of the the continental US. Closed sources that helps with the longitudinality, but also unlocks visibility into segments of the market that weren't visible, blocked drugs, blocked HCOs, and again, giving you that depth of insights into patients and ACPs and what competitors are doing within the space. So what does this all mean when it comes to BD? So when we go to the next slide here, from left to right, the depth, the completeness of the data network really speaks to the breadth and depth of the activities that are taking place. Truly understanding what's going on, being able to see all corner and aspects of the market to give you that full 360 view. Now, the unlimited access component really gives you the ability to scale your analytics in a consistent and scalable way. And because Compass Patient is delivered in a single schema, being able to build your workflows accordingly and allowing your advanced analytic algorithms to be able to not only have access and simple access to the data network, but be able to learn and be able to leverage as much data as possible. And then most importantly, the timeliness of the data itself. So with any business development effort, truly understanding what the current state of the market is going to be critically important in terms of understanding what the valuation of the market is. So daily data gives you that ability to be able to see what is going on today and how the market is reacting and changing with any activity, both from a clinical and competitor standpoint. You've heard me now talk a little bit about the data and the foundational component, but as we had mentioned, the other side of the coin is really being able to turn this into actionable insights. And with that, I'd love to pass it off to my colleague Vikas from the Verix team to walk through the Tovana solution. Vikas?
Yeah, thank you, Ed. So my name is Vikas. I'm the Vice President of Product at Verix. So in the start of my career on the consulting side, I worked on a lot of these assessments. And later in my role on the industry side, I was a forecaster. So I was really kind of happy to approach this problem at Verix to kind of bring technology and automation to speed up a slow process. So Verix platform is called Tovana, and how it's built is essentially we have a modular approach. So we have these building blocks that can then be assembled into solutions. And what this allows us to do is to essentially kind of build fit for purpose tools, kind of giving pharma teams the most comprehensive view of the market and its potential. In the case of the BD assessment platform, the building blocks we have deployed include a landscape assessment, patient prediction, patient-based forecasting, SG&A estimation, as well as the Monte Carlo simulator. So we're then able to kind of take all these building blocks and assemble the pipelines between them to build out our automated BD platform. You can advance the next slide, please. So where we have this solution deployed, we've been able to show both qualitative and quantitative benefits. On the qualitative side, we've been hearing from BD teams that we're able to dramatically reduce the time to decision-grade insights, while also helping them kind of get a deeper, real-world informed opinion of an asset, which leads to better prioritization and then more confidence in decision-making. On the quantitative side, we've been able to show ROI within the first year, which is not an easy task. So we were able to demonstrate around 50% reduction in costs while also kind of improving the time that it takes to complete one of these assessments. So something that used to take, close to 6 weeks is now done under a week. And because we kind of bring a platform-based approach, there's no limitation on the number of assessments you can conduct. You can do an unlimited amount of assessments for a fixed cost. If you could advance to the next slide. So kind of bringing together, the best-in-class data assets along with best-in-class technology with Verix's Tovana, we really feel that this is a differentiated solution that's essentially, top-notch and unmatched from our competitors. On the Veeva Compass side, as Ed mentioned, they're able to kind of get behind some of the specialty pharmacy blockages, as well as kind of give you insight as to what's happening in the hospital or HTO setting, combined with the fact that it's a daily update. All this kind of gives you the best view of the market, which is most comprehensive. And on the technology side with Verix, as we discussed, we have an automated platform which allows you to kind of do these rapid evaluations, which you then can scale. And we've been able to show from this both actionable outcomes as well as proven ROI in the first year. If you advance to the next slide, please. So I don't expect you to take my word for it. I expect the audience here to kind of live up to the challenge. So if you're interested in seeing a demo in your particular therapeutic area, you can reach out to my email address here, and we're committed to deliver a demo within 5 business days to demonstrate, the speed and robustness of the platform. So with that being said, want to thank everyone for your participation and would like to open up the floor to any questions. Okay, I can see that one question here has come in. So most large pharmas make investments in late-stage assets, phase 3. However, earlier stage assets can have a higher return. How do you balance risk versus reward? How does real-world data assist in decision-making?
So I guess I can take that one. As I mentioned, most of my current work is focused on late stage. I also have worked previously in earlier stage assets, and there's a definitely different lens that you need to apply or amplify, if you wish, more a perspective. Late stage assets, it's a lot about the commercial opportunity, the actual forecast. Earlier stage assets, it will be more about the technical merits of the drug, the attractiveness of the MOA, the scientific rationale behind that MOA, and so on. So yes, higher risk, but potentially higher reward. For the later stage assets, it's more of almost a flip side. So we're almost in a like a risk mitigation mode in terms of we have to really carefully understand a little bit to my earlier comments, what's the realistic size of the opportunity, and what's the realistic investment, right? That will define the business case. And real world data is tremendously helpful with that. Along the lines, the examples that I've mentioned earlier, because then we can really see not only, we can go one level deeper from, if you wish, epidemiology data to really see where the actual target patient population is physically, how they are distributed, for instance, across the United States. And that means what's the realistic, as we call it, addressable population with that will truly define the business case. And on the other side, we can see what we call the concentration curves, right, of patients. And so what's the realistic size of a field force and other commercial challenge that we would need to put up to commercialize that product. When we add 2 and 2 together, we have a much better grasp on the net present value from that equation. I will add that, interestingly, typically, without that granularity, my experience is that we go higher or more ambitious on the forecast, but also more conservative, just in case, on the cost assumptions. So this approach, a data-driven approach, allows us to have a more realistic view and make more solid decision. But oftentimes it also helps to maintain a good NPV, because we suddenly see that the investment costs are backed by rationale in data are actually less than what we would assume just in case, if you wish.
That was super helpful, Jacob. Just looking through the list of questions. There's one about other use cases outside of BD. What can Compass patient data support, and as well as the Tovana platform, and what is it well suited for? So maybe I can take the Veeva Compass patient one, because you could take the Tovana. So Veeva Compass patient, it's built to support any use cases that are along the commercialization cycle, but maybe a couple that come to mind outside of BD. One would be triggers and alerts. So as we had mentioned earlier on, daily data being an industry first, and what's unique to Compass patient, our data network updates daily, meaning you are able to see both the pharmacy and medical activity as quickly as possible, and therefore being able to build triggers and alerts off of that with the native off BRM is definitely one that stands out in my mind. Another one would be segmentation and targeting. Myself, Vikas, have mentioned that not only the characteristic of the data network gives you the most complete view of the market, but also being able to see nuances of the market that haven't been visible in the past, such as block drugs and block CTOs. So both the traditional retail and non-retail side of the market, having that complete view really gives you the ability to be precise and accurate in some of your S&T activities, which obviously helps to inform your field alignments, territory alignments, and then, of course, where you decide to deploy your resources. So those are the two that I would really call out. Vikas, maybe I'll pass it over to you to see if there's anything you'd like to highlight from the Tabana side.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Ed. As mentioned, because of the building blocks approach that we have for Tabana, it's really set up to take on any sort of commercial question that you may have, from understanding the patient journey to troubleshooting brand performance, all the way to the execution side to start thinking about, how are my resources optimally deployed? What is my predictive next best action? Because of the modular framework, Tabana can easily be set up to kind of help answer all those questions.
I think we have time for one more. How does the Verix Tabana solution ensure a human in the loop feedback? So this is probably related to the BD specific one. Vikas, I'll kick it over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So how the platform works is that, we combine human intelligence with the machine learning and artificial intelligence. Our platform isn't making autonomous decisions, as may other AI systems. What it really helps to do is to give you a more comprehensive, robust view of the market quicker and faster, which then helps inform kind of your decision making on that particular market. So is this a go or no go? And what's my level of confidence in that? So it's kind of a departure from maybe some of the other AI systems that the panelists may be thinking of.
I think we're coming up on time. So firstly, thank you everyone that was able to join us. Really appreciating you being able to carve out 30 minutes of your day. Jacob, Vikas, thank you both for taking the time to be able to share your perspectives on, Jacob, specifically your assessment of kind of BD and what your experience has been in the past. And Vikas, again, it's been great to partner with you to provide a solution to the market that really helps to address a lot of the needs. So thank you both. Thank you, everyone, and have a great rest of your day and week. Take care, folks.
Thanks, everyone.